time. We are talking today about 3 mistakes you are making with your sales prospecting. And this is a topic that I was just thinking about. I always feel old when I admit this, but having 20 years plus in the sales world now of both selling, of doing sales leadership, I was thinking about as I was preparing for you today and what would be helpful, like what are the things that I know I personally have made every one of these mistakes, and I see people making these mistakes too in their sales prospecting. That again, if you're watching in real time, like we're kind of in that in between week between Christmas and New Year's, where maybe you don't have sales calls this week. Maybe you're kind of taking a more of a chill week. And in fact, for those of you who are joining live, let me know in the comments, are you off this week? Are you on? Reveal Intuitive? Welcome. Ashley's in the house. Welcome, welcome. So let me know if you're chill this week or if you're working. But I know that very likely, if not now, soon this week, you're going to be thinking about 2022, and you're going to be thinking about how do you create higher level results with potentially less efforting, right? And that's a lot of what we talk about in the She Sells community is how do we get more leverage out of what we're doing? How do we, like, anytime we find we're in effort or in push mode, we know we're out of alignment. So I'm all about how do you get more leverage out of what you're already doing and get better financial results and more sales out of your work. And these are things, little tweaks you can make that will make a big difference in your sales results and will actually have you working less. So hopefully that excites you. Michelle, welcome, welcome. So good to see you. Reveal Intuitive, working a bit. Okay. Ashley just launched a new program this week, but it's super chilled launch vibes. Isn't that the best? I feel like, launch time it can go one of two ways. And when we choose to let it be chill, like chill launch vibes, that is always, number one, the most successful launch. And number two, that's the best energy to be in. So I love that. And I'm so glad that you're here as well. And hey, if you're joining on Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube, pop me a comment, let me know you're here. And I'm also super happy to answer questions at the end of the live stream too about what's going on for you with sales prospecting, where you may be bumping up against any challenges or anything else that has to do with sales or mindset or business as we go into next year. So, okay, 3 key mistakes I see people making. Number one, and this one tripped me up the most for so long, and I want to know in the comments, does this trip you up too? Being attached to who your client is. Being attached to who your client is. And this one is it can trip you up. And like I said, it did me for so long. And here's why this is important, to not be attached to who your client is. This is so critical that you don't get to decide who your customer is. When we lean into our spiritual connection, which is such an important part of the She Sells community and of what I teach, you realize you get to be attached to what, but not who or how. And that when you're in your sales process, the way that you're going to sell most powerfully, the way you're going to make quantum leaps, the way I 10x my income in 6 weeks, which felt so fast when it happened, I couldn't believe it. But when I look back at how it happened, this was a key piece of it. Your job is to get very clear on the end outcome. What's the financial goal you would like to accomplish? How many lives do you want to impact? So how many new customers are going to help you create that financial goal? And then your job is to show up and to follow whatever your sales process is. Maybe that's DMs. Maybe that's thank you so much for the hearts. Maybe that's a webinar. Maybe it's hopping on sales calls. But it's with that unattached energy of, maybe this is my client, maybe they're not, I don't know. Let's find out and see. Because your job, like that is, and you use your language, I'm going to use the word God or the universe. That is God and the universe's business. Who your client is, that's not yours. And this took me a long time to get. Thank you so much for the hearts. This took me a long time to get, because I would get really caught up in some scarcity thinking and some lack thinking for a long time when I was earlier on in sales and even in launching my business, because I didn't understand these universal laws. I didn't understand principles. I didn't understand that I didn't understand how important energy was with business results. And so I'd get really kinked up and like, I've got this financial goal. I've got one sales call on the books. And if this person doesn't buy from me, I don't know how I'm going to hit my goal. And sure enough, you get what you think about. I was thinking about if this person doesn't buy from me, right? And so more often than not, they wouldn't buy. And then I would find myself in that situation that I was hoping to avoid. What I've learned is that by knowing that your job is not to micromanage the process, your job is to show up to, again, do your part, which is getting very clear on the end goal, following the nudges. So who do you feel called to reach out to? Do you feel called to maybe do an extra live? Do you feel called to send this email? Like, do that. You have to do that. You have to take that action, but then step back. It will always, always, always land at what you thought it was going to be or better in terms of your financial goals. This is so important and so true. Let me just take a moment and read Ashley's comment. So true. When we step out of who and get into service, it's a huge shift. 100%. I love that, Ashley. Yes. So what I've learned in my own experience and the way I like to do things now when I have a sales goal is, let's say it's for a particular program. Like right now, I'm filling a couple spots for my high-end one-on-one coaching next year. And it's like, I have a sense of who I would love. Like, I don't have a sense. I know who I would love to work with, at least out of the people I already know, and who I would like love those clients to be. So I'm reaching out to those people. I'm sharing the opportunity. And if it's them or somebody else, that's not really my business. And this happened. I've shared this story with some of my clients. It's been a while since I've shared it on a live, but earlier this year, this is how it works. Earlier this year, we were doing a launch for something, did our normal process, and our normal process is usually really good and gets great results. Well, guess what? We got a big fat, like literally nothing out of it. And I had a day of, oh my gosh, I'm not even going to give it a day. It was a few hours. Like I know enough now to know that when that happens, it's a redirect. But I'm not going to lie to you and say I didn't have some energy of near panic of, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? This thing that usually works didn't just work. But what ended up happening was one person who signed up for the thing we were offering, which is a very low ticket thing, ended up becoming my highest paying client. She signed up for my highest level program, which my apologies on Instagram. I just got a call in. Hopefully you can hear that okay. She ended up signing up for my highest level program, and we hit our revenue goal with one client instead of with a whole slew of clients that I thought we were going to need. But it was because I learned to step back and say, okay, if this is happening, it simply means there's a better way, and I get to step out. And so step out and not micromanage the process. And so one of the things that I do when I'm setting sales targets and sales goals is I'll pray over it, and I'll be like, here's the target. God, this is who I feel called to serve. This is like how I'm sensing that I'm meant to show up in this moment. And I'm going to ask you to bring the right people, bring the right opportunities to me and help me out here. Like you literally get to ask God in the universe for help. Sometimes we forget and we separate our spirituality from our sales and our business process. Thank you so much for the hearts. I'm glad that resonates. And yes, when we step out of ego magic, 100%. And it'll happen. Like people will DM you who you weren't even thinking of, who are actually the perfect client for you. And if you've been so death gripping it that it has to be this way or it has to be this person, there wouldn't be the space for the unexpected to come in. So this is so, so, so important. And that's the first step is the first mistake that people make with their sales prospecting is being attached to who their client is. And so we get to have that unattached energy and excitement of, I'm excited this goal is happening. I know this goal is happening, and I'm really open to who I'm meant to serve through this. And welcome, by the way, to everyone who's joining live. We've got Christina. Oh my gosh, it's so good to see you. Welcome. I apologize. I forget if it's Christina or Christina, but welcome. I'm so glad you're here. Mary on Instagram, welcome. Ian, oh my gosh, it's so good to see you. Yes, exactly. And we get to, so for those of you who aren't on LinkedIn, Ian is saying, Love that, Elise. God listens and answers the prayers in ways you may not expect. Exactly. And we get to bring God, the universe, source into our business and into our sales process. And it doesn't have to be, it's when it's two separate things, it's like you're fighting with one arm tied behind your back. I don't even like the term fighting, but it's like you're literally running at half speed. And so when we incorporate that into all of what we're doing, we get way more powerful results. OJ's in the house. Let's go, my friend. I'm so glad you're here. Okay, number 2, second mistake I see people making with their sales prospecting, skipping straight to the end, goal. So I get a lot of people asking, like, how do you sell through DMs, or how do you sell on social media? And when I look at what they're doing, they're sending a cookie cutter copy and pasted message in DMs that's literally like, hi, it's nice to meet you. Do you want to buy this thing? And so this stuff sounds basic when we hear it, but I find that, like, I've gotten into that trap. Like I've done that. I am raising my hand as someone who has done that when I was in scarcity mode. So I get it. And if you're doing that, no shame, but that's not how you're going to sell most powerfully. That's not how you're going to achieve your results most powerfully. So I want you to just think about it exactly the same as real life. Okay. This is in terms of specifically like selling on social, selling online. If you met someone at a networking event, you would not walk up to that. Hopefully you would not walk up to them and say, hi, it's so nice to meet you. I've got this thing to sell. Do you want it? Like, that would be appalling, right? And yet, how often do we do that online? So you want to think about, it's the same, and it's cultivating the relationship. And when I think about the people who I've bought from, who prospected me online, they sent a personal message. It wasn't like you can tell when it's personal, but it's not personal. It's like, hey, I love people in the coaching industry. And it's like, like a bot pulled that off of my profile. Like, I know that that's not personalized, but it's someone who's like, hey, I listened to this podcast episode that you did. It touched me in blah, blah, blah ways. And I think it's amazing. I've got this thing going on. I'd love to connect with you on it. When someone takes the time to do that, oh my gosh, like, and it's my ego that loves that someone took the time to do it. But guess what? Each of us has an ego. Your customers do too. And when you can take just a minute to show that there is something personal about them that you like, that you respect, and genuinely mean it too, not like out of a manipulation way, but like a genuinely, I love this about you, and I would love to share this with you. Like, that's awesome. So take the time to, it's relationship building one-on-one, but we forget online that that's how it works. And I promise you, I'm a big fan of quality over quantity with sales. I really am. It varies depending on what you're selling. So I get that, but take the time to build the relationship and get to know someone. And that was always one of my biggest frustrations and pain points when I was, see you in Marchie, and so glad you're here. When I was in corporate sales, was like, I always felt like there was so much pressure to get to an end outcome by a certain date. And it put me in a like pressury mode with my prospects. And I know I would have actually sold more if I wasn't feeling so much pressure myself. So we're always balancing, right? We're always balancing hitting our objectives and our targets with also leaning into these principles of relationship building and really being of service. But I promise you, long-term, and I'm always about the long-term, you will make more money. You will make more sales when you approach it this way. Ashley's saying it's so much more of an intentional connection with people you vibe with. Yes. And if you are an entrepreneur, I know not everyone in my audience is, but if you are an entrepreneur and if you get to select your customers, like, I only reach out to people I really want to work with. Like, I really have made that decision in my life, and it makes such a big difference because people can tell when it's genuine and it's not. And they can tell when you reach out to them like that. So that's the second, is skipping straight to the end. This is a very crass analogy, but you'll hear it used a lot, and it's true. It's like going out on a date and asking someone to immediately like get in bed with you, right? It's like, that doesn't work in real life most of the time. And that doesn't work in sales either. But the flip side of that, and this is where I probably find more of my audience tends to go, and this is the third mistake, is not asking somebody to buy from you. And I want you to be real and be honest and let me know in the comments, like, do you ever struggle with that area? And does it feel so much more comfortable to get in and build the relationship than to actually ask for the business and ask for the sale? Because that's what I hear from most of my community is it's like, I'm great at relationship building. I'm great at getting to know people, but oh my gosh, when it is time to ask for the sale and ask someone to buy, like, I kind of freak out. I feel like I clam up. I don't say anything, or I kind of fumble through it. Reveal Intuitive is saying, absolutely. Thank you for your honesty there. I really hear that more from this community than the one we just talked about, which is skipping straight to the end. So here's a few things. I like to think I'm a good closer. Like, I will say that there are things I don't do very well, and I own that. I'm a good closer. Like, that is something that I pride myself on. But the way that I think about it, number one, it's with the abundance mindset. So this is important. Closing is helping someone make a decision, yes or no, in favor of their highest good. So the way that I think when we just define it as this person said yes, we put unnecessary pressure on ourselves, which in turn puts more pressure on our customers. And guess what? When people feel pressure from you, they don't want to buy from you. So I think that's the most important thing, is knowing it's helping someone make a decision. That's it. And that could be a yes, or it could be a no. And I will be the first to tell someone, I don't think this is a fit for you, because I have an abundance mindset. And I know that when I'm, again, doing my part, so number one, the first piece we talked about, you get to be attached to what, but not how. So when you're doing your part, when you're clear on your goal, when you're showing up, when you're taking the stretchy action, thank you for the hearts, but you talk to someone and you're like, this really isn't the right fit for them, you can tell them that with 100% conviction and 100% confidence that all that means is there is somebody else who's meant to be your customer. But that's closing. That is closing. And it also opens you up energetically to be able to say with 100% conviction, when it should be a yes for someone, I know this is something you need to do. Here's why. And you get to stand in that energy. So that's part of my mindset with it that helps me be a good closer. And I think for any others of you who are on this live right now who also consider yourselves good closers, I want to know, do you have that mindset with it? Because that for me was a big shift. So it's the abundance mindset, but I'm also always thinking about what's the next step. So what's the next step? So when you're in a smaller transaction, like maybe some of you have, I'm actually curious too, for those of you who are here live, like, do you have a longer sales cycle? Do you have a shorter sales cycle? Sometimes it's a one call conversation, right? I've got this thing. Here's the price point. Is it a fit, or it's a referral, which makes it easier? I'm all for that. I never want to overextend a sales process longer than it needs to be. But I'm also always thinking about closing for the next step. So it's always just kind of guiding people along the way. And this is where we get to have a process, and we get to tap into our intuition of what's appropriate for that person for the next step. So sometimes you're talking to someone and it's like, this is great. I yada, yada. I need to think about it. If you're getting that, usually there's like an underlying objection that you haven't unearthed. So that's another live for another time. But if someone's like, I need a little time, great. Schedule the next appointment on your calendars to come back together. Don't just be like, okay, great. Follow up with me when you're ready. Like, schedule the next appointment, schedule the next meeting, schedule the next step, always being on top of that. And moving people. Oh my gosh, Josh, you're here. I'm so glad you're here. Welcome. Happy holidays. Moving people to that next step. And so that's really important. So you're always closing for the next step. And then when it's time to ask for the business, not being afraid to ask for the business. This is so important. And this is something that I found language that works really well for me when I'm doing prospecting outreach, especially if it's like me initiating the outreach, is saying like, hey, Josh, you just messaged me, so I'm going to use your name here. So like, hey, Josh, I hope you're doing amazing. You came to mind the other day. I thought of something that I'm doing that it may or may not be the right fit for you, but I'd love to run it by you and see if it's something that would be helpful towards your 2022 goals. Like, is that something we can set up a time to talk about? And so it's when we go into the conversation with the energy of, hey, this may be a fit, it may not be a fit, I don't know until we talk, kind of like, guess what? You're evaluating the person as much as they're evaluating you. It opens it up and it frees you up energetically where you don't have that pressure-filled energy of the conversation, and you can confidently move the person into the next step, and move them to making a decision. And also on the front end of your sales conversations, like set it up, close for the next step at the beginning of the conversation. What I mean by that is if you've got what's called like a one call close, right? Or a one meeting interaction, set it up at the beginning, what the expectation is for you on the back end. I'm so excited to have this. Josh, you're just going to be my guinea pig's not the right, I don't know. You're going to be my pretend client today, real client in real life, but pretend client for this live. I'm so excited to meet with you today. And my goal for the meeting is, I know we're going to talk about X, Y, and Z. By the end of the meeting, my hope is that you have everything you need to make the best decision for you, towards this objective. Is that fair? Does that work for you? Is there anything else that you were hoping to accomplish in today's meeting? Great, yada, yada, perfect. If it feels like a yes for you, that's awesome. We can go ahead and get you, set up in the program by next week. If it feels like a no, that's totally fine. And I want you to feel comfortable saying that to me too. Like just giving people permission up front to say yes or no, but also letting them know that your goal and your vision is that you're going to be arriving at a decision by the end of the meeting. Are they okay with that? Are they also on board with that? But then you can also, if it's a longer sales process, like, hey, you got to know your sales process, right? Thank you so much for the hearts. By the end of this meeting, my hope is we accomplish blah, blah, blah. If it feels good, it makes sense, then the next step for us will be to do this. Does that sound good to you? And if at any point it doesn't seem like a good fit, that's fine too. And you can tell me. Like, just get the permission on the front end. And it'll make it so much easier for everyone. And it makes it feel less weird when it's time to ask for the sale. Let me just take a moment and welcome Kara, Angela, welcome Laura, Allison. So good to see you. Oh, Elizabeth, was it Juliana? Juliana, I apologize. But anyway, I'm so glad you're here. Elizabeth, I'm so glad this is speaking to you. So quick recap. And if you have questions on any of this, go ahead and pop them in the comments. But your quick recap, 3 mistakes you are making with your sales prospecting. Number 1, being attached to who your client is, micromanaging the process. Okay. Remember, you get to be attached to what, but not how or who. This is so important. Number 2, skipping straight to the end. So you got to remember, building the relationship, be in it for the long game. All right. Number 3, not asking someone to buy from you. The biggest, and my husband and son just got home, so you're probably going to see a title. Yep, here we go. Hey, buddy. One moment. We're doing a live stream, buddy. Hey, bud. So these are your 3 mistakes. Thank you for the hearts. Oh, hi, Al. But these are your 3 mistakes. So send me a DM. Let me know if any of those are areas where I've got a baby. I can hold him. It's okay. I'm finishing up. Let me know if any of those are areas where you're currently bumping up against challenges. Let me know what spoke to you. Thank you so much for the hearts. I think most of you have this, but if you don't yet have, hey buddy, mom life while doing a live stream, right? You all get this. If you don't have our guide, 5 sales scripts to increase your closing rate by 50% or more, EliseArcher.com/scripts. You can grab it. It's totally free. And I actually give a deeper dive training on closing in that guide. And I'm biased, but I think it's good and pretty helpful. So I would invite you to grab that. So, all right, my friend, it was so good to have you join today. Thank you so much for being here. As a reminder, every Monday, I'm back for a live stream. We don't have a regular time until middle to end of January because I've got travel and schedule stuff where it wouldn't permit a regular time up until then. But I was like, I want to be back. I want to spend time with you every week on these live streams. And I hope everyone had a beautiful Christmas holiday if you celebrate, and that you have a great new year. And I will see you in 2022. Take care. Bye-bye. Hey, buddy. Give me one.